So it turns out, Jeffrey made all of that money, enough to buy 2 islands, several houses, and cars, including those he bought for teenage girls, because he was a treasure hunter. You see, problem solved, everybody, because according to Ghislaine Maxwell, he was Indiana Jones. Alright, so in her interview with the Department of Justice, Maxwell says that in the 80s, Epstein founded a company called Intercontinental Assets Group Incorporated, where he claimed to, quote, recover stolen money for wealthy clients. She also says that he built his fortune partially by working for or with African warlords in the 1980s. And while the founding of this company was already known, I was unfamiliar with the African warlord part of this story. What an intimidating guy. Can you imagine this guy showing up to collect stolen money from the enemies of an African warlord?
Hell no!
I can't think of any better proof that this man was some kind of intelligence agent than if this statement was true. But then again, I don't trust this DOJ interview, because as I said in my last video about these people, this meeting with Maxwell should have never happened. And the only reason I can see it happening is to actually cover up something else. How many people in prison right now for a sex offense get a scheduled meeting with the Federal Department of Justice? Well, 1, and that's the British lady in a Texas prison. It's like every time an associate of his says something to try to make his story make sense, they only do more to deepen the rabbit hole. She probably thought this story would provide an unorthodox origin to his immense wealth that would throw people off his trail, but instead, it's something that sounds so improbable that if it were true, it would still point to every conspiracy theory about him being true. Now, recently, a task force was assembled to subpoena the Department of Justice to release more documents related to Epstein, as well as to look into the federal government's mishandling of their investigation into Epstein and Maxwell's sex trafficking ring. Now, this sounds all good and well, but unfortunately, the woman that was appointed to be one of the leaders on this committee is a congresswoman, an elected official, who used her appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast to discuss the existence of aliens.
Have I seen a portal open? No. Have I seen a spaceship? Personally, no.
Have I seen evidence of this? Yes.
Because those are the real files people in the United States want released.
Come on. Come on, man.
Even Rogan himself said that he's starting to think people are coming on his podcast to intentionally speak nonsense just to distract from other things. I understand that she demanded the release of the Epstein files, but so did JD Vance. Why was this woman chosen to lead this committee? Is it really a coincidence that her appearance on the biggest podcast in the country, possibly the world, resulted in her talking about nothing except the existence of aliens? In fact, her entire political career just looks like one big distraction. And just as a reminder, this is the woman who introduced a new legislation called the Stand With Israel Act, where she is advocating to cut funding to the UN Human Rights Council. This is a woman who, before becoming an elected official in 2023, was a bottle girl at a strip club that also became an influencer. Now you can look at this as a major success story, a person unlikely to be successful as a politician, and yet here she is. But if she wanted the files released, why did she spend all that time? She talked for 2.5 hours about aliens. This episode is from August 2025, so at the time of me recording, that was just 2 weeks ago. And then she called Kash Patel transparent.
I'm sorry. Who?
And this is nothing against him personally, but just by the nature of his job as the director of the FBI, he cannot be completely transparent. Again, not trying to discredit her because of her background, but I can't think of a better distraction in 2025 than having an influencer elected to Congress in Florida leading the charge in releasing the Epstein files. Donald Trump also hosted a fundraiser for her when she was running for Congress, and now this committee she's the head of wants Ghislaine Maxwell to appear before Congress. But Maxwell's lawyer said that she won't talk unless she's granted full immunity or clemency, which by definition is the reduction of a punishment or penalty, like the sentence she's serving in prison. And oh no, is that what this is about? Is the entire purpose of this committee to get Maxwell out of prison? I mean, it would be the perfect cover. You have a group of people demanding that Pam Bondi and the DOJ release the files, and their main witness is making demands in exchange for her cooperation. And yeah, this is exactly what this is. And to think, if this lady never went on Joe Rogan ranting about aliens, I might have actually overlooked this. Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman in prison for a sex crime, first had an interview with the Deputy Attorney General, and now she's being asked to speak before Congress. The average tax-paying citizen with no criminal record at all will never have the privilege to even see the Deputy Attorney General in person or the inside of the House of Representatives. When she takes a seat in that room, if she does, it will just be another impressive addition to her reputation of being very important places for very suspicious reasons. It's almost like every objective of this new committee is aimed at disproving everything people think when they associate Donald Trump and his old pal. Epstein's birthday book, which is supposed to contain the drawing Donald Trump claims he never made for Epstein's birthday, is also something that this committee is demanding to see. And let me guess, if this birthday book is handed over, either the author of that drawing will magically be somebody else, or the drawing will suddenly not exist, just like the list. Now, let me make something clear. This committee is not actually new. These are just its new objectives. And the man who appointed Anna Luna, which is the influencer congresswoman, as chair of the committee is James Comer, who has been the chairman since 2023, but it's unclear what progress he's made since coming to this position. It's supposed to exist to provide accountability in government, but if I'm right about what's taking place, then it is doing the exact opposite of providing accountability. In fact, Comer is a supporter of Donald Trump, so I'm sure the results of this committee will be completely unbiased. He might really be unbiased because in 2024, he claimed to be investigating Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and he even tried to get Joe Biden impeached, but all of this came to nothing since it seems he's pretty useless at his job. Like a true politician, he talks and says nothing, which is why he's managed a long 20-year career in the House of Representatives. But back to the bounty hunter for the elites thing. Now, he does have known clients for the company where he will recover lost money, but the African warlords are not named. But around this time in the 80s, he described himself as a bounty hunter and even had a license to carry a firearm. And this is also around the time he started mentioning to people that he worked for intelligence. And allegedly, he also recovered stolen money for the government. How do you even recover stolen money for a government? If someone knows the government money, isn't it the Fed's job to get it back? Or the IRS? CIA? We know this guy preyed on teenage girls, but was he actually a dangerous man? Like to other grown men? How does a man go from being a math teacher to a bounty hunter? And just as a side note, also in Maxwell's DOJ interview, she actually confirmed something I said in one of my videos where it was alleged that Elon Musk knew her, even though he said he didn't, and that she just photobombed him. It's funny because I read a quote that said Epstein hooked Elon's brother up with a woman around 2011, and Ghislaine states that she's known Elon since 2010 or 2011.
Do you know Elon Musk?
I do.
And how did you meet Mr. Musk?
I met him, I don't remember the year, but it's going to be in 2010, 11, something like that, I think, if my memory serves.
But this is obvious, since Elon himself even admitted that he took his ex-wife to Epstein's house, but he just somehow didn't know Epstein's closest friend. Now, although not much evidence is available for Epstein being a bounty hunter himself, other than a couple clients saying he recovered their stolen money, there is some evidence that Epstein had people working for him that would allegedly follow and intimidate his victims, as well as trying to kill one of their family members. So, Michael Fiston, a retired detective who became a private investigator after he hung up his badge, was hired to investigate Epstein by Brad Edwards, who was the attorney of Courtney Wild, one of Epstein's teenage victims that sued him in civil court. Now, this was in 2009, and Michael spent a decade tailing Epstein and continuing his investigation to assist not only Courtney's case, but the other victims as well. And not only did he claim to witness lavish dinners as well as parades of young women being brought into Epstein's office when he was allowed to leave his prison cell for work, but through his meetings with other girls Epstein had associated with, he also noticed that Epstein would hire private investigators, an extremely large retainer of them, to follow the girls around and intimidate them. He personally drove one accuser to her home where he found a private investigator parked across the street holding a camera, and the father of another accuser was run off the road by another person on Epstein's payroll. So if this is all true, then it's very possible Epstein could have been a bounty hunter, or at least the boss of a team of bounty hunters he could have paid to do his work. So we have the influencer congresswoman, which, if there's one thing influencers are known to do, it's get paid to say things that they don't exactly mean or think about themselves. She is the head of a committee that's calling for the release of the files, even though she is a known Trump ally, just like Pam Bondi, who is the head of the DOJ. We have the head of the committee, a guy that seems to be pretty useless at his job, and Ghislaine Maxwell in her interview seems to be willing to throw Elon Musk under the bus, but not Donald Trump. This all spells out her actually going before Congress and testifying to whatever the Deputy Attorney General wants her to say, and then her being released from prison sometime before 2030, in my prediction. And I'm just gonna stop saying this is gonna be my last video on this because it just keeps going, so you guys know the deal by now. I'll see you next time.